I am so excited that you are here. Welcome to Simply Sarah. This is truly an incredible opportunity for you to be here as we give energetic tools to entrepreneurs. And if you're not an entrepreneur, we're super excited that you are here because most of us started out doing other things and then came into this world of being entrepreneurs. So we bring all of these gifts with us. We bring all of the pieces of who we are into the work that we do. On this episode, we're going to be talking to, and I'm just so excited about this, talking to Ann Meyer. She is the network president for Achieve TV. In Achieve TV, you're going to love this tagline. It's a play on words. It's a vision network for entrepreneurs. And so we're going to be telling visions, we're going to be sharing things and concepts and ideas, looking at where we are, looking into the future. In each of these episodes, we're going to be talking about simple, easy to apply tools that you can look at your life and decide, is this a place that I want to be putting this in? So I'm going to bring in, I'm super excited about this, bringing in Ann Meyer. Ann, it's so good to see you.
Thank you so much for having me on your show, Sarah. I am so happy for you and for the audience.
I am happy for this audience as well. They are in for such a treat. And as we begin this conversation today, I would love for you to share a little bit about your journey to get to where you are as a television president, as a network president. How did this all come together for you?
It was never my intention. Both of my parents were entrepreneurs, so I swore up and down I would never have my own business because I saw how much work went into having your own business. And yet here I am. I do my own thing and I would never go back. And it started out really, I was working for myself before, but the whole TV aspect of it came into play during COVID. And, I lost my job because everything shut down and I needed to pivot what I was doing. So I had a business coach who recommended that I do a summit. So I did this online summit and I had amazing guests on the show. And because of that, I was featured in magazines, I was on other shows and things like that. And somebody said to me, you know what? You need to have your own show. So I started my own TV show and it blossomed into me becoming a network president. So I never thought that I would be here, but I just followed the flow of life and the universe telling me this is where you need to be and this is what you need to be doing.
One of the things that I love about you and our friendship that has grown over probably the last 4 years or so is your passion for people. And so our audience is in a place of being able to hear you on your own show, Own Your Wellness. And in that process that you have been sharing with people things that they are able to empower their own lives with. And so I love that this is a natural progression for you to go from having your own show that's highly successful into this place of having your own network. As you were talking about not wanting to be an entrepreneur because your parents had been, what were some of the traditional things or some of the things that you did that brought you into this? Because yes, there was that hard start for a lot of people of what do we do in pivoting that happened a few years ago. But before that, what were the things that were your learning pieces, your tools, your places of growth that brought you to what you're doing today?
I'm really glad you asked me that, Sarah, because, it comes down to nothing is a waste. Everything that I have done, even though it didn't make sense at the time, has helped me become the person I needed to be in order to be where I am right now.
Yes.
And I've lived many lives and I've had many different careers in this little body of mine. And I would say, though, that the major thing that really, there's two parts. One is I had a drinking problem and I decided that enough was enough and it was time for me to stop with the stupid craziness. And that was a huge pivotal moment from just sort of I would go to school and study amazing things and work at jobs like restaurants, and I made really good money and all that. But once I decided to get serious about life and really live and be present, that was a huge thing when I got sober. And then because of that, and this is so funny, is I swore up and down I would never work in addiction recovery, not ever. And that's what I did for about 6 years. It kept on being in my face that people were asking me to do it. So I finally said yes, and I did that. And that was by far the hardest thing I've ever done.
Mm.
And also, it got me ready to be seen. And what I mean by that is that when you're working in addiction recovery, you're dealing with people who are in, one of the worst times of their lives. Therefore, not happy and super angry, full of shame, self-hatred, all of these negative types of emotions are bubbling out. And you, as the person of authority in the situation, get the brunt of those feelings and that emotion. So it really taught me not to take anything personally. It's not about me. And also how to really help people instead of like being of service to them instead of trying to please them, because what is best for somebody isn't always what they want. So
Oh, that's
that
so
was
powerful. Yes.
yeah. So that was by far, that's what really got me into, genuinely, I don't know, focusing my efforts of wanting to help people and wellness. And that's really where I really started, was genuinely helping people at the worst times in their life.
Julianne, I think that one of the places that I have so appreciated our conversations over the years has been this idea that each of us, no matter what the landscape is in our life, no matter where we are in our life, have simple choices that we can be making that impact us individually. And when we begin to work on ourselves, it begins to impact things that are around us. And yes, that can make other people uncomfortable, perhaps at
Mhm.
times, but in that decision, that the message that we have, the thing that is creative, it's bubbling up inside of us, is here for a reason in this
Mhm.
time, and to not be putting it underneath something so it can't be seen, underneath other people's expectations, underneath um, addictions, underneath compulsive behaviors, underneath uh, trying to escape what's happening around us, but
Mhm.
rather finding tools, finding ways to be able to breathe inside of it, listen internally, and be able to make our own choices for our wellness in order to be able to move forward. And I love that message. And I think that for you, it really was crystallized during those years of working with people who were in a place of being able to finally share out loud how they were self-loathing and what was taking place. So as
Mhm.
you take all of those experiences that you learned during that place, right after our commercial break, I would love for you to share a little bit more about what that looked like from being the person who was hearing all this energy that was coming at you, and what you did then in order to be able to share back, not mirroring back for them what was taking place in their life, but showing them a different path forward. So we will be right back after this commercial.
Coming this spring, by popular demand, the second season show on The Tour of Love.
The E360 TV platform is saying we want the Tour of Love.
With winner of the first Global Impactor Award, Tamara Hunter, along with Emmy-winning co-host Skip Thomas.
We are going on tour, on the road. It's time. Love unites, and there is healing through connections. This is a worldwide movement, the Tour of Love.
And we are back. I'm so excited for us to continue this conversation, sharing about what it is in our lives that has been something that's helped us to move into this place of sharing on with a larger audience. And audience, we are so excited that you guys are here listening in and taking in and processing. What is it that we are sharing that may be helpful for you in this process? As we went to commercial break, we were talking about the different pieces that Julianne learned as she was working with people who were in addiction recovery that helped her to become in this place, in this incredible new place of being a TV host. And so I would love not only TV host, but also a TV president. And so I'd love for you to share some of those pieces that you learned, maybe some of the tools that were really helpful for you that may not have been so much fun to learn in the process, but that you could feel in your full being were pieces that were so important for you to be able to hold on to and then be able to share at the appropriate time for other people.
I really like that question because I would say that the main thing that I've learned, and this is something that I really want to share with, starting with a quote, is by Epictetus. And it says that, or he said that, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. And I adore that quote. And the reason why is because I have been told so many times, or been put down, or why are you doing this? And all the negative stuff that people put on me. And then I do it. And then the same people are the ones that ask me how I did it. So the thing is that not the people that you expect to support you will necessarily be the ones that do. So you really have to learn to listen within as to what it is that you want in order to get where you want to go. Now, it's fascinating to me because I've never done life like I was supposed to. I've never done, I'm getting married for the first time. I'll be 45 when I get married for the first time. Didn't have kids. I've lived around the world. And it makes people uncomfortable because they can't fit me into some sort of a box. Not everybody, the right people don't care. But the point is that a lot of people do. And a lot of people make their choices from fear as opposed to love, and what they think is right, or that's what my parents did, or that's what everybody else is doing, without going within to know their own answers. And this whole journey of, not only my own problems with substances, that was just a way for me to mask and not look. That's all it was. And I mean, it had some detrimental effects, but it was easy for me to quit. And I know that that's like a weird thing to say, but it was really easy for me to quit. Well, I was done. So, I mean, it's never been an issue. But the thing is I had to really look at myself after that, and to see people, not just myself, but see people go within and finally look at the hurt instead of running from it and embracing it and reframing it. And this all takes time. That's the thing about growing and changing and becoming the next version of yourself. There's nothing wrong with you just as you are. And that's something that I think is so important. But the main thing is that it's a journey. You're not ever done until you die. And so there's always going to be another iteration of yourself. There's always going to be a new goal. But if you can stay open to what is presented to you and listen within, then you can find those answers for yourself instead of looking outside. And that's what it's like to be an entrepreneur. You have to stand alone, basically. Even if you have a team, even if you have, a significant other that completely supports you, you're the one that stands in that alone in that fear, the unknown, all of the things, while you're creating something new and standing in faith. And that's really, people don't understand. You have to stand in faith to be able to become an entrepreneur. And don't give up for the miracle.
Yes, absolutely. I so appreciate that, standing in faith. But also, while you're standing in faith, sometimes it feels like there's not a lot of ground underneath you. And Jim Rohn talks about don't ask for a better wind. It's about
Mm-hmm.
to set the sail in a better way. And so learning those skills. And for me, I come from a family that is highly scientific. And then I came along and I really appreciate science so very, very much. But I couldn't see myself as a double board certified doctor like one of my sisters. I didn't see myself as a registered dietitian as my other sister. I didn't see myself doing research as other people in my family have done. I didn't see myself being in a lab consistently wearing the robe and doing the things in white. I just wasn't, that didn't feel creative and fun for me. Now, am I thankful that there are people still working on diseases like malaria? Absolutely. So I'm thankful for people who are doing all those different kinds of things. But that just wasn't the path for me. And I really appreciate that my parents saw that I was different. They weren't really quite sure always what to do with that or about that, because I'm really quite different than my family. However, that space of me learning to listen internally and to listen to the uncomfortable, and then sometimes, and this is one of the tools that I'm going to share today, is taking that uncomfortableness, whatever that happens to be, and fear can be wrapped in so many different ways. And I think of fear, not the kind of fear of I'm in a crosswalk and I'm holding my mom's hand and we're going to be going across and there's somebody who's driving who's not really paying attention. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about false evidence that appears to be real. So false evidence appearing real, the masquerading, and it can consume so much creative energy in that space. And so for me, if I'm able to identify it and say, hey, fear, masking around, what is it that you want to tell me? And
Mm-hmm.
almost every single time the answer is, I want you to be safe, Sarah. And so it's not there in order to encourage me to be creative or try something new. It's there to say, just don't get hurt. And how are we going to grow if we don't begin that process of unfolding, that process of releasing, that process of looking at things? And so then the next step for me is to be so deeply grateful. Thank you so much for showing up and reminding me once again that you don't want me to be hurt, don't want me to fail, don't want me to be embarrassed. Thank you so much for that message. I'm going to still choose to do this anyway. I'm going to still choose to move forward. And so when I got when you had sent me this amazing email saying, Sarah, I'm going to have my own network. Come play, come have your show. Let's do this together. I realized after we had had some conversations, it was probably a wise thing for me to let my very scientific family know that I was going to be doing this. I thought that the best way to do it, knowing that they know that I'm different, was just to send them a text and say, hey, this is something that I'm going to be doing. Now, obviously, I got different responses from each person, and that's completely fine. It was important for me to let them know so that they didn't get caught off guard with other people saying that they ran into saying, hey, have you seen Sarah do this thing? But I was super also just letting them know, and it wasn't that I had strings attached to it. And boy, that was so different for me than who I was 15 years ago as an entrepreneur. 15 years ago, if I shared it, I wanted their approval and blessing
Mm-hmm.
right up front. And I would be sharing and talking and wanting them to understand it. And at this point now in my journey, I'm able to say, I know that you guys want me safe. I know that you guys want me to be successful and then be able to move forward. So how do you handle when you start to feel those uncomfortable feelings? What's your go-to, Julianne?
I've come to the realization that those uncomfortable feelings never go away. There's not something that you get over and then you're done. You know, there's
True.
always going to be an uncomfortable feeling. And I'm going to share a really quick story because I think that this is really important. And it's that I used to live in Italy and and it was an amazing experience, and I moved back to the States. And here's the thing, like when I was there, you're still you're still in your body, and when you are living somewhere, it's not the same as vacation. So people are like, ooh, Italy, yeah, it's beautiful, but I also didn't speak the language. And I also didn't have any friends, and I also didn't have a job when I started. I mean, I didn't have any of those things when I went there. So it was scary. It was uncomfortable. It was all of those things that I was constantly on edge. So when I look back, when I was there, I never really felt comfortable the entire time that I was there. But as soon as I moved back to the United States, I felt this sort of longing, and it took me a long time to realize, because I thought it was Italy that I needed to get back to Italy so I could feel the way feel that feeling again. And I realized finally, it took me about a year or two to figure it out. The thing I missed was the being uncomfortable. That was the part that was fun and exciting. And as soon as I realized that, it changed my relationship with being uncomfortable, because I get to decide how it's going to feel. It's the same sort of like fear and anxiety can feel the same way in the body as being on a roller coaster and being excited about something. So why don't I just reframe it as fun and exciting, like a roller coaster, and turn it into a game, as opposed to, oh my gosh, I have to get through this. It's a lot more fun. So that's how I deal with being uncomfortable, is by changing my perspective of it, because it's not going to go away. So I might as well make friends with it.
And I so love how you talked about the roller coaster, because for me, the visual that I get is my energy begins to come in tighter. I begin to feel like there's not as much space to be able to move and wiggle, and I feel not stuck, but I'm not a digital native, right? I'm over 50. And so that's just not part of, I love technology. I enjoy using it, but there are places and times where I get a little stuck on it. And when I start to feel that energy pushing in now, rather than having the conversation inside of my head of, I don't know this, and where what that is not going to lead me to a place of figuring it out. It just, I'm stuck at that point, right? But beginning to feel, ooh, it's starting to feel like it's pressing in. This is a place and time for me to pay attention and focus and realize that there is something here that I need to really pay attention to. And then how do I begin to problem solve this? And sometimes it's looking up information, making a phone call, whatever. Sometimes it's I am working on this, and it may take a day or two or even longer in that process. And I used to be super impatient because I was really concerned about the fact that I didn't know, and it was obvious and people could see these things. And so then when I began to realize that technology just keeps changing, when I feel comfortable with it, that's the point that something really cool and new is going to show up. It's going to have another learning curve with it. And maybe with the learning curves that I've done so far, perhaps it's going to help the next one kind of move forward, maybe a little bit better, a little bit more, a little bit easier. But to feel that energy begin to come in, compress, for me is one of the things that helps me understand that this is a place to pay attention to.
I think that that's it's a lot more healthy to look at it. And I love that you said too about how, you're relaxing into it basically, because it's like, okay, it's okay if I don't know the answer, and it won't serve me to say I have no idea what I'm doing, because that just gives you more of that.
It does give you more of that.
Exactly. It's kind of like when you're searching really hard in the drawer for something and you can't find, it's in there, but if you just slam it closed and open it up really quick, you can see it. It's the same idea. Just let it go for a second. It's right there.
Yes.
Just chill out.
Yes. Yes. So very true. We're going to take another commercial break. And when we come back, Julianne, I would love for you to talk about the organizational skills that you have set up, because your life is incredibly busy. You are planning your wedding. It's so very exciting. You are still continuing to own your wellness TV host show. So you're doing all the parts that go along with that. Now you also are a TV network president. I think that you are still working one-on-one with people. I know that you are a phenomenal coach. You have so many different things going on. And then you do put into your schedule time to play and have fun and enjoy life. So we're going to go to commercial. And when we come back, we're going to have conversations about what you do to make all of those things, how you organize to make all of those things happen. And we are back with Julianne, and we are talking about different things that we're able to do to make all the different pieces in our life work and keep all of it balanced together. And it's not always going to feel super balanced, but yet seeing the flow of things moving forward. And we're talking right now about organizational skills. And so, Julianne, with all of the landscape that you have in front of us, and if I missed things, feel free to put them in. But getting married, TV show host, TV show president, TV network president, seeing private clients, an incredible coach, doing all the different leadership things that you are doing. How do you stay organized? And what are the tips that you're willing to share with other people, entrepreneurs, to help them be able to look at their life and maybe put some of the pieces in place and feel more of a calm mind?
I love that question because it took me it was anti-schedule for the longest time. And whenever anybody, including myself, tells me what to do, I don't want to do it. It's just this automatic thing. I don't know where that came from or why, but scheduling obviously is number one. But here's the thing that people tend to forget when they're scheduling their lives is you need to put in the fun things. You have to put it into your schedule, because if you don't set aside that time, it's not going to happen. That's why so many people have bucket lists that stay lists. They never actually get it done because they'll do it someday. They don't put it on the calendar. They don't do any of that stuff. But there's two things that I think that are or actually three things that are so important to when you have a lot of things on your plate. Number one, you have to ground yourself. If you are not grounded and your energy is going absolutely everywhere, everything feels like overwhelm. Absolutely everything. So you need to learn what works for you. For me, it's being outside, going outside. If I have a technology issue, I set it aside, I go walk my dog, and then I'll come back in and everything all of a sudden magically works. Or I figure it out suddenly. Or for me, it's taking a shower or a bath, because the water releases my feminine energy and I can get back to the heart center as opposed to my brain. So those are things that truly help me stay out of overwhelm, because just because I have a lot of things doesn't mean I have to feel a certain way about it. Being busy doesn't serve anyone, but being productive, doing less, is probably easier. So I automate a lot of things. Most of my emails, if I'm saying the same thing over and over again, then I have a template. So I can just send it out, personalize it, but that saves me time. I have things that go out in certain orders. I, automate everything that I can automate to give myself extra time to do other things that I want. And I always spend time alone with myself. And I can't remember who it was that says, he meditates and he also thinkitates. And I love that. I love the thinkitate.
Yes, that's good.
I just, even in the morning, there's a few things too, like with the scheduling. It's like, I don't jump on my phone right away. I don't believe in pressing the snooze button, but I do, so that I lay in bed with myself and just bask in being comfortable and being in my body and waking up. And that it has a time limit. So I use that snooze button differently so that I have that me time before I get up and start doing all the things that need to get done. But number one, I would say automate what you can. Definitely you need to schedule, and also show yourself some grace, because it's never going to work perfectly. You're talking about balance, and I prefer the word harmony, because harmony, it's never going to be even Steven. There's always going to be something that needs more attention or something else that needs more whatever. But do I feel okay with that? Am I in harmony, or am I giving too much of myself to one thing and I'm feeling depleted? Because ultimately it's about not feeling depleted and feeling like time is your friend, not your enemy.
Oh, I really like that, because time is our friend.
Mm-hmm.
And when we are able to sit back into it, and I agree with you, sit inside of the body first, come home to feeling comfortable inside the body, and
Mhm.
has its own conversations and own seasons for that as well. And it's not a you have to do it right now, this instant, and nothing else matters. Life is going to keep moving. But I really appreciate you talking about grounding and finding those things that help you individually ground. I know that for me, that time alone is really important. I know that for some people, time with other people, going to parties, being with, in large, loud groups is super helpful for them because it helps
Mhm.
to rearrange their energy and let them feel like they've been part of something. And I can do that for a while, but I have noticed that I'm not an introvert. There's kind of that middle road between the extrovert and introvert where I need to have both of those things happening in my life. Um, and in that space, that's been super helpful for me to be able to find the space of the quietness. And like you, my mornings start with a quiet time, start with that space of being able to listen into the day. And in the particular season that we're in right now, it's often dark. When we get to a different season, it'll be, sunny earlier in the morning. And so that, kind of plays along also with how I'm feeling inside of my body. You were talking about scheduling kinds of things. Are there things that you and your fiance schedule in terms of getting away or time together or you with family members? For me as an entrepreneur, if I am feeling depleted in my family time and my
Mhm.
conversations with my loves, I begin to really notice that I'm not as focused on the tasks in front of me, even the creative
Mhm.
things that I've been looking forward to doing. So that becomes a part for me that's really important. So do you pull out your calendars and schedule things together, or is there something that you guys have done that's made that works for you?
Yeah, here's the thing too is when it comes to loved ones, we always think they're always going to be there. And it's like, okay, I have to finish this project first or I have to and I'll do that. We'll get together. We'll do something tomorrow. No. First of all, you're not guaranteed tomorrow, but
So true.
also, and then all of a sudden you're wondering why your relationship isn't so great anymore or relationships because you didn't put any effort into it. And so yeah, we have our date night minimum once a week, and then we have our Sunday mornings together. And those are our two times that no matter what, it's just him and I. It's not our animals, it's just him and I. It's no friends, it's just him and I. And then, we do have moments and things that, we get together at the end of the night and,
Yes.
talk about our day and things like that. But you do have to make it a priority. And I'm like you. First of all, I need my alone time, but I also need my relationship time. And I need to feel connected.
Mhm.
And if I don't put that on the schedule, if I don't make that a priority, then it's so easy to put it off. But the thing that number one that I've been really not, I'm better at it now, but it is scheduling actual fun and following those little things that light my heart up, and instead of my brain's tired, I'm just going to go watch TV. I feel depleted after that. It's like a wasted downtime. But if I do something that lights my heart up, lights
Yeah.
my soul up, then I feel rejuvenated. So instead of doing those escapisms,
Mhm.
I started doing things that actually I find it doesn't have to even make sense. Like I literally right here, let me show you. I've got bubbles. I will go blow bubbles because it's fun and it means nothing.
And to see the iridescent colors and to watch it, it's art in motion,
Exactly.
right?
It makes me happy. That's
Yes.
and it's really that simple, it's
Yes.
really that simple. But the other thing too that I really wanted to share, I just thought of is that, when you are doing a lot of different things, there needs to be endpoints to what you're doing instead of it just flowing all together because that creates overwhelm. I don't care what it is. I had a friend of mine teach me, and I have this here too. Every time I go to write, for example, I play this little wooden flute. I
Yes.
just do a few. I don't know how to play the flute, but I play a few notes, and then that means it's time for me to do that. And it's
Ceremony.
like, yeah, exactly. And it's time. And then at the end, same thing. I'm done. I do that with everything. I don't roll activity into activity into activity. I do something to break it up.
Yeah. And I so love that when we're texting back and forth on things, you always give me a point of when you're going to get back to me. And I have great respect for that because I'm sending questions or thoughts or comments or how is life kinds of texts when the time works for me. And to know that the other people that I'm working with or things that projects we're working on together that's not necessarily their particular time to make that happen. I also really like the idea of ceremony, that this is how you start your writing and that there are endpoints to go to things. And talking about endpoints, there was something that I had been working on for a while, and it had been a special request by somebody. And so I was looking at my calendar and schedule. I knew that it was going to work in terms of that. And as we were coming finally into the what does this look like in your world and what does this look like in my world, all of a sudden the person stopped and said, I have somebody else who's going to do this. And I didn't feel hurt. I was quiet because I could feel the energy inside of me and I wanted to be present for that energy.
Mm-hmm.
And then she looked at me and said, well, are you shocked? And I said, no, I'm just processing what's taking place right now. Because prior to that, I had been looking at my schedule and I knew that I could fit it in, but the flow of it wasn't feeling as flowy
Mm-hmm.
in that process. And for this person to all of a sudden completely on their own say, there's someone else that I'm going to have do this, just was a place of, for me, spirit coming in and saying, there is more than one option, more than one way. And Sarah, your energy is going to be used over here in this way, and let this just go ahead and go. And I was surprised that I wasn't hurt. I was surprised that I wasn't, because I'd put effort and time and energy and stuff. And like what you said earlier in this show about nothing is wasted, that's
Mm-hmm.
how I felt with this as well, instantly, that all the things that I had done to organize are not wasted at all. It had certainly given me clarity for who I am, what I offer, how I offer, but it
Mm-hmm.
also then provided me a space of being able to see that not all things that I offer or conversations that I get involved with other people, not all those things are going to come to fruition, and to allow them that space and dignity to be able to walk away when the time is right for that to happen. Such an important piece. But I also think it's important when you talked about letting things come to an end point to also put endpoints on projects that
Mm-hmm.
for me, projects are never totally done. I'm currently a music teacher at a very large school district. And so I move through 5 different elementary schools teaching music. And one of the things that I have loved about my job, this is not what I've always done inside of education, it's what I'm doing currently. But what I have loved about all of the years of being in education is there are these endpoints that happen before winter break, before spring break, and then before summer. I'm in a traditional system. And it's just so good that when I start a project in the summertime, I know what my endpoint is. And that endpoint is before family vacation. And that has been such an important piece for me to know that whatever it looks like, it's never going to be perfect. There's always going to be something else that I could do or add or another component to it that could make it work for this school year. But yet inside of that is this place of this is where we are, this is done, and I can pick it up and work on it later on. I know that one of our mentors, Robert Raymond of Achieve, talks about launch and adjust.
Yep.
And that putting those endpoints in to say, at this point, I'm going to launch this, and then I'm going to adjust, knowing the adjustment process is a lifetime process as well.
It is. It is definitely, it's the thing. It's as you grow and evolve, everything grows and changes, and it doesn't have to be perfect. And I like the idea of, putting an endpoint, but then maybe coming back and revisiting it at another time.
Yes, I love that too. Absolutely. We're going to go to a commercial break. And when we come back, I'd love for us to share some ideas. You talked about grounding. You talked about spaces of harmony and creating more of those. And are there things that you do when you were grounding and scheduling that help you also then to be able to find this space of harmony? Or are there words key points, things that you pull onto, that kind of are your scale in life of determining if these are things that are harmonious for you or not. So we're going to go to commercial, and when we come back, we're going to continue this amazing conversation.
Life is so fragile, and we're constantly reminded just how fragile life can be, especially when we or a loved one is told we have cancer. Cancer survivor myself, I can tell you, we still feel very alone in this journey.
There's a study that's been shown that patients who are socially isolated have a worse prognosis, have a worse outcome than patients who are socially interconnected.
Buddies for Life is a non-profit cancer support group for those whose life has been impacted by cancer. Humor, hope, heart, and hugs.
Humor, hope, heart, hugs, and a whole lot of love.
Share this with your friends and family and support this community in every way you can. No one should face cancer alone.
I am a chemo buddy for life.
We are a buddies network.
No one does cancer alone.
Be a buddy.
And we are all here for you as a community of love.
We are chemo buddies for life.
And if you've heard 3 words, you have cancer, for yourself or someone else, you belong with us at Chemo Buddies for Life.
Healing through connections.
And we are back. We're having this incredible conversation with Ann Meyer. She is the president, network president for Achieve TV. And she's been talking about different ways of being able to organize your life in order for it to flow, to be in harmony. That's her word for it. So we're going to bring her back in and continue this conversation. Julianne, I'm so excited that you are here to finish up this conversation. And we were talking about, how do you know? We've talked about fear in an earlier segment, feeling fear, choosing to move into that space and feeling it, choosing to uncover and authentically be who we are. And in this space of learning then how to ground ourselves and to listen internally, part of that listening is about what some people may call alignment, what some people may call what serves them best, what some people are going to call harmony, what some people are going to call authentic energy. In the space of those, what are some pieces that help you know that you are moving more into that space?
I love that question because it took me a long time to figure it out, you know? And so for anybody who's watching this, like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Neither did I. I had no clue. You know what? Like, I wanted to, and this is a story for another time, but I wanted to be a deputy sheriff and I had to go back to school for something. I was like, what do I like? I seriously didn't even know. I looked around at my books and I realized, oh my gosh, I have all these nutrition books and et cetera, et cetera. So I went to nutrition school. It's like, you know, I had no idea. So show yourself some grace. It takes a minute to figure it out. Hopefully you're further along than I was. But the point is that you practice on little things. Practice on little things that you know you like. For example, listening to your body, you're thirsty, for example, and you're like, okay, I'm going to have some water. How does that feel when you're drinking that water? How does that feel when you agree with yourself you're going to drink that water? Maybe what you really want is tea. So yeah, that was close, but it wasn't quite it. Pay attention to how that feels in your body, because that will give you the indications as to whether or not you are choosing something that is right for you. Most of the time we pick from our head as opposed to our heart. But if you can feel from your heart first and then make the choice intellectually, you're way better off. And it's just, you know, how many times have we said, oh, I knew better. I knew, but I shouldn't have done that. We've all said it. So it's the same idea. It's just really listening in to that little tiny voice, and it gets louder the more you practice. And the other thing,
go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, one more thing. That it's totally okay to say no, thank you. Even if Sarah, this is what is it that you say? I want you to say it, but even if something is good, Remember when we were talking about that, how it might not serve you?
Exactly. It may not be the best thing. It may not, even if it's amazing, it may
Yeah,
not be the right thing.
exactly. It might not be right. It might not be right for you or the right time, or just
Yes.
because it's good doesn't mean it's good for you. So pay attention to that little voice. That's the main thing, because you know whether or not something, you don't need somebody else to tell you.
Right.
And if you're sitting on the fence about it, then it's not a hell yes.
So very true. And I've noticed that one of the things as I've become more in tune inside of my body of how things feel is to start feeling across my shoulders that something is a burden. And it
Mm-hmm.
can be something that nobody else thinks is a burden. But for me in that particular moment, there's just something, there's an aspect of it that feels like it's heavy. And the burdens don't have to be bad. They don't have to be bad things. And I think one of the pieces for me that's been really, really helpful in the last couple of years as I've been doing more of this work is it's one thing to care about somebody, a situation. It's a whole different thing to carry that person
Mm-hmm.
or situation. So I can be present. I can feel like they're asking me to carry something, and I can show that I care without having to carry it. Now, there's definitely a place of practice in this for me. And there's also how close that person is in my life makes a difference as well. So obviously, my husband, my daughter, something's taking place in their life. There's going to be a different level of care versus carrying, right? Than it
Mm-hmm.
is for maybe a Reiki student or a client or somebody that I'm coaching or somebody who's asking me to help them become a Reiki teacher or Reiki master, right? So just kind of figuring out those places that we can be present, we can listen. And when I was a beginning support and assessment teacher, helping mentor brand new teachers in the state of California, one of the things that it was by, it was anonymous, and so I can't tell you who the person was who said this, but the quote went along the lines of, "The most important thing that somebody needs is to be heard."
Mm-hmm.
And so giving that space of allowing people to be heard, and I can't tell you the number of times that I've had conversations with other people, including you, where as I'm talking out whatever I'm thinking, all of a sudden the answer shows up for me right there. It was
Mm-hmm.
just being in the presence of somebody who cared, who was holding that space for me, who was listening, that allowed me to kind of put some pieces out there and to begin to see that I could problem solve them myself because I know I'm capable. And that's one of the things I know at the audience. Every single person who is listening, I know that I know that I know that you are capable. And maybe you don't feel like you have that space of expanse where people are cheering you on, celebrating the things that you are working on. But I invite you to come back and keep listening into Simply Sarah, because we're going to continue to give you tools that's going to be strengthening you internally. And part of that is learning how to celebrate for yourself as well. One of the other things that we were talking about, Julianne, was the idea of harmony. So, what's one of your gauges for harmony?
You know, if I'm feeling exhausted for no reason, I know that something isn't right. If I feel joyful for no reason, I know that everything is right.
Yes.
So I mean, it's really that simple. It always goes back to, how am I feeling? You know, I stopped doing what other people think I should be doing and started doing what fits in my schedule and what makes sense for me and what I want to do. There's always going to be something that you don't like about whatever it is that you're doing, but you should enjoy it most of the time. And if you're not feeling joy for no reason most of the time, then something is out of balance.
Yeah. In this process of harmony and scheduling and things, do you create places and times on your schedule specifically for content creation?
Yes and no. I do have about an hour a day that I just have like a creation hour, but content, I don't really like that idea. I mean, just as a word, because I want to be of service. And if something is resonating with me and I want to share it, great. But if there's nothing, or I don't feel like sharing something, I'm not going to. So I'm not huge on social media. That's not my thing, but, or even just creating for the sake of creating for other people. I will do it when in that time, when
Yes.
it is there. And yeah, I mean, not everything comes to fruition is what I'm getting at. But yeah, I do. I make sure that there's creative time, because if you wait for inspiration, sometimes it never comes. But if you sit down at the computer, for example, it will come.
So very true. And as we're starting to wrap up our time together, where is the place when you have ideas and thoughts and you're out and about? Do you have a place on your phone that you put those? Do you do voice memos? Do you find a piece of paper? What's your best way of capturing those when you can't stop and do all the things and create it in that moment, but it's just such a great idea and you know in that place that this is a keeper?
I've done it all, but my favorite is I have a little notebook. I'm kind of old school. I still have a desk calendar too. I mean, I use the one on my phone as
Yeah.
well, but yeah,
Yes.
I've got all the paper in the world. I'm not very,
Yes.
not very good for the environment, but I have a little notebook that I carry around, and I'll write down quotes or things that inspire me or things that I want to, look back at. So yeah, that's kind of where that's what I do.
I love that. Well, Julianne, thank you so much for being on this show today, on this episode. I so appreciate you. And I am going to put in a banner across the bottom because I know that you have your show coming up. And what are the times and dates that you have, or the day and times that your show is?
My show is from 4 to 5 Pacific on Mondays and Thursdays, but you can catch it on demand as well. So if you can't make the time, you can always go back and look.
Fantastic. And so ownyourwellness.com is one of the places, but also you have Achieve Dash TV. And I celebrate this with you. This is a huge piece that's happening. And I'm excited about this. Tell a vision for entrepreneurs, because this is exactly where we need to be, sharing the best concepts of things that are coming forward. So thank you so much, friend, for being on the show. I appreciate it. And as we are finishing up today, I just want to tell you, thank you so much, audience, for being here. The pieces that we have shared have been ideas about organization. They've been ideas that you can simply put into your life. They've been concepts about looking at our life, and are there places and areas that we are choosing to hide, that we are covering over in whatever kind of way that we choose to do that, things that feel comfortable for us, that maybe it's time for us to start taking those mantles off and showing up authentically as who we are. I'm super excited that you are here. I'm so excited about the pieces that are happening. And come back and meet us next week here. And we are going to finish with me saying, have an amazing week, friends.